What is up, guys? Welcome into another episode of From the Wing. I am Christian Clark, the Pelicans beat writer for NOLA.com and the Times-Picayune. We have a great show for you this week. We're going to talk about the Pelicans' new partnership with Gray TV, something that we've been talking about in this space for weeks and weeks now. It finally got announced. I don't even think we're weeks. I think we're probably days away from the Gulf Coast Sports and Entertainment Network, the new home of the Pelicans, going live over the air. If you live in New Orleans, it's going to be Signal 7.1. We are going to talk about Klint Kubiak, James Borrego, and the value of scheme. The Saints are one of the best stories in the NFL right now. They can't stop scoring. Literally nobody saw it coming. So we're going to use that as an excuse to talk about the OCs on the Saints and the Pelicans. And then we're going to finish up at the end of the show by discussing Jose Alvarado, who's got 1 year left in his contract. He's going into his fourth year with the Pelicans. One of my favorite guys to cover. We're going to talk about what he's done in the New Orleans uniform so far. What does his time in New Orleans look like going forward? His place in the NBA. Just a guy I've really enjoyed covering and I like to talk about. But before we get to all that, we have a special announcement. From the Wing has a new presenting sponsor. We are thrilled to be presented by Crescent Canna.
Check it out, guys. There's a thing under the thing now. There's a picture. It's a picture of the cans. That's the products. Scan the little QR code. Somebody is going to pay the bills other than us. This is monumental.
I first learned of Crescent Canna on Mardi Gras Day, I think 2 years ago. I was out on the day. It was like, a 70-degree, just perfect day. Probably 2-3 o'clock. I ended up at the Friendly Bar, and somebody was like, "Hey, you want a Crescent Canna?" I was like, "Yeah, I'll try that." And I was like, "This is nice. This is really nice." So I've known about this for 2 years. I think it's just a really good, nice product, easy drinking, not too harsh or anything like that. I mean, I've genuinely enjoyed it when I've used it, and I'm thrilled that we get to be associated with them.
Look, the early returns. I'm a little bit of a late bloomer. Everybody that listens to this knows that I am a whiskey guy. There are bottles literally in arm's reach as we speak. Like I could just reach down here, and because I'm such a terrible person, that is right there. Because I'm a whiskey guy. We know this. So I'm a late convert, but I can tell you the early returns. I don't sleep good. Never have. And I also have a very, very tiny child who wakes up every night. You want to know what's already helping me sleep better? That guy. So early returns are good. Now we're going to start investigating a little bit and start trying to deliver for our new partner. Exciting things to come. We're going to be telling you to scan that little QR code, and we're going to tell you where to get these things. Got this right around the corner at Rouse's. Literally 3 minutes, throw a rock from my house, hit a Rouse's. This is right in there. And let me tell you, they got some bad boys that hit a little harder than this one. If you're adjusted, let's just say. So anything you want. And probably the first thing I thought about going into is like, is this going to have like a smell or a taste that's off-putting? Brother, this is the tropical. It's a mango seltzer. You know what it tastes like? A mango seltzer. Pretty scary when you have a cocktail or a flavored bev and you can't taste what's hitting you.
It's like floating on a lazy river in Hawaii, baby.
Honestly, great characterization. Great.
All right. Let's get into the show. There was some news that came out this morning. This got announced on Fox 8 and the great airwaves. I mean, I was up super early watching that rollout. I also, I guess, helped with this rollout and had, a bunch of the details that Fox had. I think I had a bunch of new details too. Gulf Coast Sports and Entertainment Network is going to be up and running by the end of this month. I think there's a decent chance it's live by next week, but I can tell you for sure, Gulf Coast Sports and Entertainment Network is going to be up and running by the end of this month. You'll be able to watch the Pelicans play 75 times during the regular season on Gulf Coast Sports and Entertainment Network, which you can refer to my article on NOLA.com, depending on which market you live in the Gulf South, to find your over-the-air signal If you're New Orleans, it's 7.1. If you're Baton Rouge, it is 9.3. Check that out. It's almost here. It's happening. They are really doing this, Adam. How are you feeling?
Shocked that it moved this fast. I like when we first started talking about this felt conceptual. This felt like even when we talked about it over a year ago as a hypothetical way to move forward, it seemed like something that would be very complicated because you're talking about dealing with cable carriers, you're talking about dealing with broadcasters, you're talking about existing programming and needing to overtake spots and get catalog. That's hard, and it's hard to do in a short period of time. Schedules are already made, content is already purchased. So that's, that all sounds hard. And like building a streamer is also just proven to be hard for a lot of people. ESPN was terrible with their streamer for like 3 years, and now it's finally acceptable. So it just seemed like a very large task and a very intimidating task. So when we hear that they're going to commit that route, the last thing I'm thinking is, yeah, it's going to be ready like at the start of the season. That was not in my thoughts at all. And lo and behold, they've got this thing, at least in its initial form. It's parboiled, to use a term Louisianians are pretty well acquainted with. We got a parboiled pot of rice here. We're halfway home already, and this thing's gonna run. It's gonna run soon. We'll probably have some, learning curve stuff. We know we will. But the idea that this group made the almost inarguably correct decision and that it's coming to you this soon, we just can't complain.
Yes, look, when this gets up and running, maybe next week, there's going to be a lot of room for improvement. And I think the people involved on the Pelican side, the great TV side, they understand that, right? I mean, the phrase, we're building the plane as we fly it. I heard multiple people use that, right? And I think when you turn that station on next week or 2 weeks from now, you're going to look at that programming and you're going to say, maybe this doesn't feel like the best programming in the world. I think a lot of it will change. It will improve over time. Obviously, in terms of live sports rights, Pelicans games are going to live there. If you live in the New Orleans area, 8 to 10 Pelicans games will be on Fox 8. Those games will also be simulcast on Gulf Coast Sports and Entertainment Network. Once again, every game that is not a national TV exclusive is going to be shown for free over the air on the Gulf Coast Sports and Entertainment Network. And I think, look, like you can evaluate this 2 months from now, 6 months from now, a year from now. I just wouldn't make any sweeping judgments on day one because I think a lot of the programming is going to change. There's not even going to be really live sports rights until October. I mean, the Pelicans' first game on October 23rd against the Bulls is going to be here. And I think over time, more live sports programming will get added to this. I mean, just think about a high school football game of the week on a Friday night. Like, to me, that sounds awesome. Like the high school basketball state championships. And I'm just throwing that out as hypothetical. But like, that's the vision. Now they've done a lot of it, but like they gotta execute now.
You said game of the week. Shout out, rest in peace, Ed Daniels. The content is going to be built out as we go. Like we're probably going to have like repetitious things. We've already got questions. I've talked to a lot of fans already just in the last couple of days since you were putting information out about like how quickly until it's up in Lafayette. Where else is it going to be up? How soon till they get some sort of deal with DirecTV or with Cox so that we can see it on the other cable broadcasters. All that stuff is like, as we're hinting very heavily, all in the works. And they sound pretty confident on some of those things that they're just eventualities. Sounds like some of the like just reach stuff is just, hey, we don't own a station in Lafayette, so we got to like come to a deal there kind of thing. Am I correct in describing it that way? It's just like, they don't run that station, so we got to come to an agreement with like a sister station to broadcast it, on a frequency they're cool with.
Yeah. So if you read the Pelicans press release today, the markets of Lafayette, Birmingham, Huntsville, and Montgomery were not mentioned in the team's official press release, Gray's official press release. If you read my story on NOLA.com, those markets were mentioned. That is because basically It's going to happen. It's just they can't announce the signal yet. But from everything I've heard, I am viewing Lafayette, Birmingham, Huntsville, Montgomery as part of this coverage area where Pelicans games will be shown over the air. I can't tell you a signal yet. I had signals for all those other markets. I don't know which over the air signal will be in those four, but my belief as of today, September 17th, is you'll be able to, if you live in one of those markets, you'll be able to watch the Pelicans on the Gulf Coast Sports and Entertainment Network on October 23rd when they play the Bulls in their first game.
So yeah, that's probably the biggest question, right? Is like, this has already been a market that has been starved for an ability to watch their own games. We have been one of those markets, especially for people that are outside of the greater New Orleans area. So that, in the broad strokes of something as gargantuan as rolling this out, these are major wins. These are significant, broad-reaching major wins. There will be gaps. There will be learning curves. A lot of people are going to be learning how to hook up an HD antenna. And the other stuff will come, like the streamer and all that, of all those things will come. But it sounds, at least, like when it comes to, is the plane going to have a fuselage and an engine and space for us to fit? Yes, yes, and yes. Going to have some landing gear. Might be a little bumpy, but we're going to be able to take off. Everybody's going to be in the plane and we're going to land. It might be a little, a little nervy at times, but fast forward a little while in this, I think it's only going to have room to improve. And we already saw kind of a little glimpse, if there's any thematic carryover of what they did in the transition from Bally to Gray, when we did those handful of games that were transmitted on Fox and on Bounce. They borrowed a lot of the things that already work at Bally's, a lot of the people who already work at Bally's. And if that theme remains true, then we should see a lot of things like just get fixed and get oriented quickly. So just bear with us on the front end and just be happy that your team made the right choice, because a lot of franchises have not pulled this trigger yet.
Yeah, a couple of other details. This is going to be a high definition channel. I know that was a question
Woo.
after the Bounce experience of like, is this picture going to look like garbage? From what I've been told, it's going to be a high definition channel. I got a lot of questions on Twitter today. So I need an antenna to watch this. I mean, well, look, there's going to be a paid streaming option, which they're going to unveil by the end of the month. It's going to be called Pelicans Plus. I don't know a price point. So like you can pay to stream it on, whatever device you want in market. That is going to be an option this season. But if you want it for free, as of today, yes, you're going to need an antenna. And that could change. I think, once the channel gets up and running, there's going to be continued discussions with cable, satellite carriers, adding the channel on there. My belief, and I can't predict the future, but like there's a lot of optimism that it'll get added to Cox Cable in time. But as of like today, that stuff has not been agreed to yet. And so yes, you will need an antenna. It could be a rabbit ears, it could be a digital antenna. I use a digital antenna. It looks like a fountain pen. It's like 6 inches tall. It sits right behind the TV. I don't even look at it. That's how I've watched the NFL for a couple of years. And to me, it's great. I mean, you just get access to a lot of good programming for free. So I would, if look, I'm just speaking for me. Like I love my little digital antenna life, and they're like $25 on Amazon.
Yeah, look, but we're also talking to different generations and different levels of tech savviness and whatnot. So things that are maybe easy or comfortable for us may be different. So look, we're going to go through it with you. Like, I am personally happy to hear your gripes. I had, my living room TV for the longest time, because I wait for things to die before I replace them, was not a smart TV. And so that was doing an HD antenna was a more complicated deal for me, because I didn't have the right inputs on the back. So it'll be, different for different people, but like, don't hesitate to send us your questions. Like, honestly, like I'm a decent dude. I'll try and help you figure it out. I'm going to be figuring it out myself. And we'll get there. And like you said, it's free 99. So we'll figure it out. Like, free motivates people. So we'll get there. This is exciting. I'm still just shocked that it's this fast. When you told me, hey, I think this thing is coming soon, I was like, soon, like December, January.
Yeah, I mean, think about it. They made the decision basically in a month and a half of we're going to leave Bally Sports and we're going to launch this channel, and the channel's about to be launched. Like this all happened within a month and a half, and that really wasn't the Pelicans' fault. That timeline is a result of Bally Sports' financial issues. You know, they're in this bankruptcy, and it's like these teams don't have clarity almost till they're at the end of their offseason. And the Pelicans finally decided they're like, we're just not going to do this anymore. We know this wasn't great for our fan base when we re-upped with them 2 years ago. We are getting out of this. And I think they are doing what's best for the fans. There will be growing pains, I think, but like, look, I made this prediction on an earlier podcast. I think the TV audience is going to double.
It sounds right to me. I'm just excited that like I've been a member of this fan base for a really long time, since, you know, prior to your joining us, and the television reach has always been a problem. And I think there's even ghosts of like the remainder of like NFL blackouts. Like there's a lot of people in this fan base that remember Saints blackouts. Geographic limitation of broadcast of your own team is brutal. We hate it. I'm still going to hate it for the Nuggets until they figure out what the hell to do over there. You should not want your team to not be seen by its fans. You should not be pursuing growth of your fan base. This is the right call. Could they have, can you argue, oh, they should have done it before they re-upped the deal? Well, guess what? Nobody did. A couple of teams made a bold decision with new owners and a lot of money to say, like, I'm going to come in, I'm going to knock this thing out of the park. That's really cool. They've served as a model for us. Now we're going that direction. Still a ton of teams that aren't. A few that have started. I think you said Dallas is kind of joining the armada and going out on their own. We're going to see this happen. It's a matter of time. It's just a matter of like, who wanted to take that one more check from the near bankrupt Diamond Sports, who has shown no ability to be a profitable company like that. This is not an if they go bankrupt, it's when. And it's kind of silly that they've been allowed to like reorganize and reschedule these trials over and over and over again to just continue to exist. But they have. I commend, as a business person, ripping the Band-Aid off before the season and then just jumping in, like, give me 70% of the product as the season starts. Let's go through it together. Let's get it started now, because the alternative is kind of wait till the next year. And I think that would have felt worse. So let's just rip this Band-Aid, do the thing.
All right, Adam. Well, we will hit this topic again when the thing actually gets launched. I'm excited to lay eyes on it. Maybe next week, maybe the week after that. But Gulf Coast Sports and Entertainment Network is coming soon. Adam, like literally everyone here, I was sitting on my couch watching Saints and Cowboys, and I was watching the Saints put an absolute whooping on them. And I'm watching the Saints offense that can't stop scoring the football. 91 points in 2 games. Our main topic today. Why was the hiring of a new Saints offensive coordinator? Of course, I'm talking about Klint Kubiak. Why has it been a smash hit? And the Pelicans hiring of their offensive coordinator before the start of last season, James Borrego, was just kind of meh. First of all, let's take the first part of this. Why is the Klint Kubiak thing worked? Tell me.
So I'm gonna try to give a little nuance, but not give a 2-hour answer, because I am a reformed football analytics nerd, and I could do this topic for hours and get into every little thing. Broad strokes, the NFL evolves in scheme over time. The popular schemes right now, we've kind of moved away from an offensive sets that are popular in the NFL being made of supersized athletic guys and beating you with power and athleticism, and finding like those dynamic positions. And also, like, we had a Peyton Manning, Tom Brady, Drew Brees era of these cerebral quarterbacks that could have 3 or 4 plays that they could call, and they could diagnose with their own eyes, with their own cadence as they're under center, and they could get you into a good play. What Klint Kubiak does, and what the Shanahan systems do, going back to Gary Kubiak, his dad, and Mike Shanahan, the Super Bowl winning coach of the John Elway Denver Broncos. What they originally did was a zone read run scheme. So it creates specifically set like rules for how linemen move to open up run lanes. They stay committed to it. It changed the way that people operated offenses back then. Now their sons have been the guys who took spread offenses that you've seen across college for the last 2 decades and found a way to implement them in the NFL successfully. If you go back to like Chip Kelly was a guy that was famous for being a spread guy in the NCAA. We saw him come to the NFL ranks and he floundered. And it was like proof that the spread offense can't work here. Well, as these offenses have evolved, we have seen defensive linemen and defensive linebackers get smaller, faster, more dynamic. The response to that has been that offensive linemen have also gotten leaner, more athletic, more versatile, guys that have played across multiple positions. That lends itself to finally successfully running those spread concepts. So Kubiak comes in here. He has carte blanche with this offense because Dennis Allen is, at the very least told you, I'm not going to mess with that thing. I'm going to do the defense over here. But I left that whole thing to Carmichael even when it was bad. I never jumped in even there.
So you're saying Dennis Allen wants no influence over the offense whatsoever. He wants to just purely delegate the offensive tasks to someone he trusts.
Yeah, look, and there's styles of coaching, and I think it's okay to know like he's an elite. Dennis Allen has always been an elite defensive coordinator. The debate has been, can he be the CEO, head coach guy, have the defensive influence, and do enough with the hires to have the offense run well? The thing that scared everyone is you run like the ghosts of Sean Payton's offense with Pete Carmichael, who was trying to retire. And you end up with this neutered version where the play calls are not dynamic. The situational play calls are horrific. And now we have cast that aside. And the fan base and like just Dennis protecting his job is like thirsty for one of these young, bright minds to come just innovate, even if he only does it for 1 year and then becomes a head coach. And Klint Kubiak, coming straight from that San Francisco Shanahan system, which has been a Super Bowl contender of late, he's doing the damn thing and everything fits.
The stat that is just, really popped to me is, look, Derek Carr last year he was a very efficient in play action, right? And the Saints were 32nd in terms of like the frequency they were in play action stuff. And through 2 games, they're first in the frequency of play action stuff. So, I mean, Derek Carr, I think he said this too for a long time. He's like, I really like playing in the play action. And he wasn't playing in the play action very much last year. And he's playing in the play action a lot right now. And he looks really good. And I think there's like a lot of parts to it, but it also helps that Alvin Kamara, still him. Alvin Kamara is still him. He's still like really good.
It's easy to be still him when the scheme makes your running lanes be 10 feet wide too. That's the thing. Like, so one of the other things you mentioned, that stat, the other seismic stat, pre-snap motion is happening on like 92% of offensive plays. You know how much that happened last year? Lowest in the league. So those were 2 gigantic changes. And the pre-snap motion, while everybody looks at it as like window dressing, it is an easy way to at least get one key on what the defense is doing or put them in an initial predicament so that Derek is starting his reads right there, not when the ball is snapped. He is reading the play as a guy runs. He is looking to see who goes with him. Is it a linebacker? Is it the corner? Did the corner stay out? It's an easy way that a lot of teams use to give that first initial setup for like, what is this defense doing? And it's been absolutely bananas. I was in there for the Carolina game, tickets last minute, not emotionally invested in the season. I was excited about the Kubiak hire, but I don't like Dennis Allen. I have no faith. And then in the preseason, you don't get to see the system. So I get in there and I'm like, all right, what's going to happen? When I tell you 5 plays in, me and my buddy are like grabbing each other by the shirt, like pulling each other back and forth. They're doing all the things. because everybody who watches this team like a sicko or a psychopath has been asking for like a droplet of modern offense. And we didn't get a droplet. We got Niagara Falls, and they're doing it every game. And so then the question after Carolina becomes, can they do this to a real team? They get a very, very respected defensive line and defense of the Cowboys, albeit no Deron Bland, really, really high end ball hawking safety. And the question becomes, can they do it to Dallas? And they came right out the gate and shoved it down Dallas's throat. And you're like, oh God, the system's real. It's not just that Carolina's bad. The system's that good. The funniest part of this, and this is for my Saints nerds, none of us, literally none of us, would have said that after the first 2 weeks, the best offensive line in football would have been the New Orleans Saints. Nobody. Not a one.
No, this feels like maybe the most shocking story in the NFL right now. The Saints offense is really good. I mean, it's been really fun. All right. So look, why I wanted to talk about this, like clearly this move to get Klint in there and run the offense, it's worked. It looks like it's going to work. I mean, I think we can already say it's been a success, especially compared to what they were doing under Pete Carmichael. Just is hard to watch at times. The Borrego thing, it got sold as like the Pelicans are going to, he's this really sharp offensive mind. Pelicans, there's going to be more ball and body movement. They're going to be bombing more threes and a little bit, but not that much. And it didn't feel like a pronounced change. And I thought it would just be interesting to talk about like why. Well, I mean, why did we not get what we thought we might get in the preseason last year? And look, I think some of it is personnel, but I think the main thing is the difference between basketball and football is defense and offense are more connected in basketball than football. I mean, football, the 11 guys who play defense aren't the 11 guys who play offense. And in basketball, the 5 guys who play defense are the 5 guys who play offense. And you kind of have to make some choices of, who you deploy. I mean, like the Pelican stars are who they are, and they're all, like the 3 highest paid guys from last year, Zion, BI, and CJ. They're more offensively oriented players, but Willie can make decisions about the guys he complements them with. And he largely complemented them with guys who were more defensively oriented role players. And the Pelicans had a pretty good season, by the way, but that felt like a big part of it is like, I'm just going to make this decision. Like, I feel like our best chance for success in the regular season is putting these like dog defensive minded defensive players around the Pelicans' best guys.
Yeah. So we probably should have like rummaged around other ideas before coming to the thing that I think is the conclusion, but it truly like that is the thing. It is the fact that you never have to look at Alvin Kamara and say, I could run this play, but I'm really worried about if he's going to let a guy into the defensive backfield and score a touchdown. That's not how that works. So in basketball, that is how that works. If I'm going to put the guy in that has the awesome 3-point percentage and he can't defend, well, the threes aren't going to matter to me because they're going to get erased on the other side. Yeah. And you have to think about that at all times. And it's something that us fans struggle to do. We really don't tend to care about the defense. We hope they miss more than we care that the defense looks good.
And here is a classic example from last year of this issue. Like a lot of the fan base was like, why are they playing Jose Alvarado over Jordan Hawkins? And look, I think the Pelicans looked at it and said, we've got CJ, small guard. He can get picked on defensively sometimes. We've got Jose Alvarado, small guard, who, as tough as you could be at 5'9", but he's still 5'9". You got Jordan Hawkins, who is a little bit taller, but he can get picked on defensively. Only 2 of those 3 guys are going to play. CJ is obviously going to play. He's one of the best 3-point shooters. So that leaves one spot between Jose Alvarado and Jordan Hawkins. Jordan Hawkins played a lot at the beginning of the year. There's some great flashes, but he was just not ready defensively. And guess what? Jose Alvarado is. I mean, I think there's just no argument that last year Jose Alvarado was more ready last year to contribute to winning than Jordan Hawkins. I like Jordan Hawkins as a prospect, but like, yeah, people look at that, they just don't understand. It's like, Yeah, I mean, I think offense matters more than defense in basketball, but defense still matters.
Look, go look at any stat or any analytic you want surrounding Jose, and you can answer the Jose question a bunch of different ways. Because if you just go look at how he played, Jordan Hawkins opened a door and allowed Jose to come take some minutes, and Jose took that job and never looked back. And that's it. Like Jose just he won all of his minutes all season, no matter what. Him and Najee were responsible for reviving the offense after terrible first quarters, like 17 different times. So the fact that you could count on that and that intangible stuff does matter to coaches. The idea that, like, I know I can trust this veteran guy to come in and he's going to give me 100% and it's going to impact other guys. They know that about those two. It does embolden them even more. Like if Najee's only shooting 26%, and you leave him in, like, yeah, it's because I know what he can do and I know he's never going to give me less than 100. That stuff plays. And so Jose just took the job. He did. And it's, look, I've been warning y'all, Jamal Cain, it's coming. There's some stuff. Jamal Cain and Javonte Green, they're going to infuriate some people. And I can't wait, because it's going to be a lot of the same stuff. It's going to be that stuff that matters, that stuff that helps you win regular season games. Sure, is it the purest pursuit of the correct analytical balance for a Zion-led team? No, but we're going to have a weird start to this season. Brandon Ingram is still on this team. It is unlikely that is the future composition of the starting lineup. And so you're going to be doing some Band-Aid stuff early and just figuring out how to win games and just try to get wins. And some of those wins are probably going to have to be nasty. And we're just going to need like ISO production at a high level from DeJounte and Zion. And look, like we've said 100 times, we'll say it again, starts and ends with Zion. Back to our original topic. Try and tie. We'll go back because I'm the king of tangents. I think, we bring up Borrego's name. I think part of this is that two-way side. And the other thing is, I think it's also just more natural for a head coach to be the primary influence on both sides of the floor for a basketball team than his assistants. And it's even hard to know sometimes how much responsibility the guy, like the lead assistant, who's an offensive minded guy, it's hard to even know where their responsibilities start and stop. So that's another thing at play there. It's like, how much, if you hire anybody, how much does it actually mean they're going to have that input? And then, like you said, if my concerns are defensive, can you even play that way?
It did feel like the buck stopped with Willie in terms of just offensive play calling last year. Like, I think Borrego absolutely had a voice, but I think Willie made all of the final decisions and had the final say. And that's different than football, where Klint Kubiak, he's just calling the plays, man. He's just calling the plays. The other thing, I brought this point up before the start of last season. Those Charlotte teams that Borrego got to play fast and bomb a lot of threes were very guard-driven teams. I mean, those were teams that had Terry Rozier, Devontae Graham when he was pretty good, LaMelo Ball. I mean, their wings were Miles Bridges and Gordon Hayward, like guys who handle the ball, on the wing, shoot threes. The personnel was a lot different than what the Pelicans were rolling out last year. Like, Pelicans had CJ and they had Jose. I mean, Jose, but like, they weren't they weren't ball handler rich last year or anything like that. I mean, we know they felt like that was an area that could be upgraded because they traded for DeJounte Murray this summer. They went out and got a ball handler this summer. So I think the personnel too was a factor. And the other thing, and I'm sorry to just keep coming back to this all the time, Brandon Ingram is just a very specific player. Like Zion, I mean, one of my biggest criticisms of the Pelicans is they just haven't put a lot of like great fitting pieces around him. He also hasn't been the most reliable guy in the world. But like, Brandon is a very specific player, and the fit between him and Zion offensively is just not the cleanest in the world. And it's tough to make that work. It is.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head. It's like if you took Borrego back to that Hornets team and said, the guy that needs to shoot 9 threes a game is actually Cody Martin. So if you can get him to shoot 9 threes a game, then you're really cooking. That's what he was being asked to do with Pelicans players. It was guys that are not high volume shooters. It was guys that, like, look, Najee improved and Herb improved their 3-point shooting big time. They got more comfortable in more situations. Trey expanded his ability, started firing off the 4-point line three and all that stuff with more regularity. There were improvements, but like going all out, it's kind of like like the head coach of our favorite soccer team. If you're gonna lean into a very skewed offensive style, you gotta lean all the way in. You can't just dip your toe. You gotta go all the way into that. And so, like, what we saw was the dip toe. We saw, like, yeah, we're trying to focus on getting 43s up. We're trying to get guys over 6 and 7 threes a game, but we're not going to sacrifice defense to do it. So
Yeah,
you get what you get.
You know what I don't want to hear this year? I don't want to hear everyone saying our goal is to shoot 43s a year this year, and then they're just shooting 32 every game, and they're not doing the things that they need to be doing in terms of deploying the personnel and running offense in the right way to shoot 43s a game. If you just want to be a defensive team, that's cool, man. I mean, like, they just won a lot of regular season games doing that, but like, I just don't want to hear the 43s a game thing for the third year in a row, and they're coming up way short of that every single night. That's a little bit tiresome.
Now I want them to do it to you after game one.
My friend Fletcher Mackel, sports reporter for WDSU, he had some interesting tweets today that, and I'm not saying this negatively of Fletcher. I actually don't think were interesting if you just have watched Willie Green coach any basketball. But Fletcher basically said that he's hearing Daniel Tice is going to be a starter. And he's going to play 15 to 20 minutes per night. And look, I believe that to be true. I think Fletcher got good information. Like, I trust him. Kudos. But like, if you're surprised by that, I'm surprised that you're surprised, because like, we've seen Willie Green coach for a couple of years. Do you think from the opening tip they're not going to start a traditional center? Do you understand what that means? If Daniel Tice is not starting, and they're going to start this lineup of DeJounte Murray, Herb Jones, Trey Murphy, Brandon Ingram, and Zion Williamson, that means one of Zion Williamson, who's the shortest player in that whole photo of all the Jordan Brand athletes that went to China. He's shorter than Luka and Jason Tatum and Paolo Banchero. Trey Murphy, who was 5'3" when he started college, and Brandon Ingram, who hates rebounding. One of them is going to have to guard the other team's opposing center from the opening tip. It doesn't seem that plausible to me. I can see them closing games that way. I just have a hard time seeing them start games like that.
Just like almost a palpable disgust at the idea that anybody's watched them and thought this would go a different way. I'm right there with you, dude. I don't know how anybody, like, we talk to people who watch this team every night. That's who all of our friends are. We talk to each other. We both watch every single minute of these dudes playing. If you've watched Willie's tenure, there's just no reason. Like, it'd be like looking at a blue pen and doing the liar thing. Like, the pen's black. It's clearly blue. So what else did you think? What other ink did you think was going to come out of it? We know what Willie's tendencies are, which is why I'm warning you about Jamal Cain and Javonte Green and what I've seen them do in other minutes for other teams. This thing is going to be Willie's team still, and it's still going to go his way. It's still going to lean defensive, and he's going to cover that center position. Now, I started making Moneyball jokes. We're going to create the center in the aggregate, because, like, it was interesting hearing just right off the rip. My concern about Tice is I don't ever want to see that dude play more than 20 minutes. And when I hear he's going to be the starter, but then I also hear he's going to play 20 minutes. And I'm like, okay, so how am I going to fill the other ones? And look, I'm a Carlo buyer. I got some early tweets out there about, just like, look, it's not anything crazy. I know everybody likes to think I get sycophantic about weird players, and
You're
I
a Carlo
do.
crazy confirmed. You are.
I do. I do. I'm not, I wouldn't give myself the credit of calling myself like the president of the Carlo Crazies, but I'm probably the treasurer.
Hmm.
I like enough that I watched like replays of Slovenian games to see like, just like, what's he doing over there? Because the stats look good. I'm like, oh, this clip popped up. What's he doing over there? And then he moved to the G League, and I'm like, okay, let's see what happens when he plays against like some guys that are going to be able to play in the NBA, like some relative athleticism. And he looked really good. Like he looked too good for G League. I'm like, okay, but G League doesn't play any defense. What's he going to look like in Summer League? And then he kills in Summer League. I'm like, all right. Now I just feel like he's probably a rotational big. And that's probably where he's at. Like he plays a mature game. He plays a game that has a lot of versatility and variety in it. It's not a strong dude. He's not likely to ever be an NBA starter. But do I think he could hold down 15 or 20 minutes? And is it worth a shot? Hell yeah. The thing that scares me is banking on any more than that from either one of them, or banking on any minutes from Yves Missi in year one with just how raw that's going to be. And maybe it is just the three of them and it all works out. But man, if one of them gets hurt, like, are we talking about like 20 minutes of Trey Jemison as like a thing? I don't know. All those things, it sounds like it's almost like the guy that's like spreading chips around on a roulette table. Like, I think it's going to be 17, but I'm getting nervous. So I'm going to put my chip and slide my chip over. I'm going to cover 15, 16, 17. Screw it. I'm going to put one on black too. That's what it feels like we're doing with the center position. Like,
Okay,
we don't really have a safe bet. So let's just bet it all.
Let me ask you this. If you look at the position estimator stuff, Zion spent 14% of his minutes at center last season. What is your prediction on the percentage of minutes Zion will spend at center this upcoming season?
The same or lower.
Okay.
I don't expect. I know this is a thing that like that people like have analytically craved and that like people are curious about. You know what I'm more curious about? Healthy seasons. I don't want him in positions to bang with centers. Like it's the inverse of the Anthony Davis doesn't want to play center thing. I don't want him doing that stuff because I need to preserve him and I need him to be my offensive engine. So if that's what we're going to prioritize, am I cool with it happening occasionally? Like, do we need to have those reps? Does that potentially need to be like your closing 5 or 6 minutes? Sure. And is he actually at center is going to be another question. Because if he's out there with Trey, with Herb, with Brandon, I think you're going to see them being comfortably switched 3 through 5. And it's not a true, like, he's going to go bang with a guy in the post. So, I don't see it as like jumping up to 20% of the time. I don't even think small ball is that much of an advantage in the NBA anymore to lean into it that hard. So yeah, I think especially in the regular season, let's see closing lineups. Let's see closing halves. 3.5-minute spurts of the small ball stuff is totally fine. Leaning into it like heavily, I am dubious.
Tom Thibodeau did an interview that I read this week where he said, Julius Randle, I'm expecting him to play a lot of 5 this year. And it feels like the Julius Randle Knicks situation will be similar to the Pelicans Zion situation in that the teams will talk them up as they're going to play a 5 a lot, and they'll play the 5 some, but not as much as they sold at the beginning of the season.
Yeah. Yeah. We're going to try to make it work is the thing. We're going to try to make it work. So sometimes he's going to go there. So see, look, he played center and it acquiesces to like the public want of like, oh, your best lineup if he's the center. Whoa. That's all great. The reality is this dude is a mega investment and this feels like is building to being the year where he exerts his powers at a level different from what we have seen. He still looks, like a very svelte David Ortiz right now. And I'm ready to see that. I'm trying to focus. Like I'm still very distracted.
This is our city.
Look, I'm just warning everybody. I'm going to be pumping that GIF all year. That is going to be flying onto your timeline incessantly. Because I'm sorry, until he cuts that thing, He looks like David Ortiz. I don't want to. Jaylen Brown feels lazy. David Ortiz feels like more fun, and it's like a little poke at like he stopped eating ice cream at 2 a.m. and that's good. But yeah, he's going to play it a little bit. Do I think he's going to be like making the all-star team as a center? Look, if they want to give him the position to like help him get a nod or help him get all NBA, sick. But no, like reality, I think you're going to see the dudes that defend that position. But we saw glances. Like if there's hope for BI in all this, we saw a lot of situational glances in the back half of last season where there were center reps that happened against BI and against Zion, where BI and Zion won. So it's like, maybe the thing just works and the offense is so good that you're just willing to live with it on the other end. Maybe I'm completely off on that, but it just feels a little doubtful.
All right, moving on to our last segment. But before we do, just want to say thanks to our presenting sponsor, Crescent Canna, the THC seltzers. Like I said, it is like floating on a lazy river on a tropical island. It is just delightful.
Look, they got some other brands that are out there. These are now like products that are readily accessible for us. They are at all of your grocery stores. I get mine from literally the Rouse's around the corner from my house on Airline. Walk in, it's right there on the way to the whiskey aisle. Now I can just stop right there. I got to say, this is new for me. This is not something I've been like with forever. I am a whiskey dude, but whiskey is not the greatest thing in the world for your long-term health. So it's worth looking into an alternative, a natural, organic, vegan alternative. This guy specifically is like their entry-level cans. Like they're like, they kind of have an entry level, like a medium tier, and then they're like high potency stuff. We're gonna work our way up to the high potency stuff. But the 6 milligram can, THC and CBD, I went into it thinking like, am I gonna smell hemp? Is the word dank gonna come into my brain? And instead it says it's got mango puree in it, and brother, it smells and tastes like mango. It just is what it is. So there's nothing off-putting about it. And like I said, we'll see what the late returns on like Adam's health are as I continue to play volleyball and a little bit of pickup on the weekends and try to survive. But the early returns for my sleep, dude, Christian describes it well. You feel lighter, little floaty, you hit the sack, and all of a sudden I'm sleeping till my alarm goes off. That's unheard of. That doesn't happen in my household. So if that's the only thing I get out of this is that it's a sleep aid, man, this dude's turning 2 in like 6 weeks. I'm gonna need more of these. Luckily, we got a friend. Like Randy Newman said, we got a friend. And we're gonna be having these around for a little while. We're gonna tell you how to get them. We're gonna do some fun stuff down the road.
Crescent Canna, very chill. Let's talk about the least chill player on the Pelicans roster. I'm of course talking about Jose Alvarado.
What a segue.
Wanted to finish up with him just because Matt Moore, who's on Twitter at Hardwood Paroxysm, he's been on the show before. He sent a tweet that got me thinking. Jose Alvarado is never going to win Sixth Man of the Year, and I genuinely think he's the most impactful bench player in the league and has been for 3 seasons. I would maybe not go quite that far, but I do think Jose Alvarado is generally underrated. And I think people look at him as, oh, he's this fan favorite just because he's this all-out effort guy who's passionate, and New Orleanians see some of themselves in him. But like, dude, the like Matt is right that the advanced numbers on Jose Alvarado like are really strong. Like I went through his 3 seasons so far. His rookie year, the Pelicans outscored other teams by 7 points per 100 possessions with him on. They got outscored by 3.5 points per 100 possessions with him off. His second season, they outscored opponents by 3.7 points per 100 possessions with him on. They outscored opponents by about a point per 100 possessions with him off. And then last season, this is pretty crazy. When Jose Alvarado was on the floor last season, the Pelicans outscored other teams by 12 points per 100 possessions, just blew them away, beat the brakes off of them. When Jose was on the bench, only 2 points per 100 possessions.
Look, I think anybody that's emotionally attached to this team and is a sicko has seen this with their eyes. And we saw it very, very early, right out the gate. He's just a dude that can't quit. He's like he said, he's light-skinned Pat Bev, but better. And we've seen that repeatedly, and we've seen it when they needed it. We've seen huge threes from the wing that you need to go in from the wing. He delivers all the time. And he never, one thing he never does is let you down. He never lacks for energy. He never ducks the assignment. He wants every assignment. He thinks he can guard everybody. He thinks he can shoot over anyone. And it's not shocking that bears out. I kind of understand, like, I'm glad that Matt like drew attention. This is like one of those conversations where maybe this player isn't all NBA, but they deserve some conversation. Maybe he'll never win Sixth Man of the Year, but he does deserve some conversation because the odds are against this man from a physical stature standpoint. And he is not this all-out shooting dynamo. But what he does have is real repeatable guard skill and a knack for defense and the ability to just be an absolute pest on the ball.
And what he has proven is he can consistently win the minutes against other backup guards. When he gets bumped into that starter role that happened during his second season, just because the Pelicans were dealing with so many injuries, he's overextended. It's just a little bit too much for him. But against other backups, he can consistently win those minutes. My favorite Jose Alvarado stat, steal percentage in New Orleans franchise history. Chris Paul, number 1, 3.4. Jose Alvarado, number 2, 3.0. Second highest steal percentage in franchise history. And I think the other thing that gets lost is he plays with pace. I mean, he pushes the ball up the floor. He passes it up the floor. He moves without the ball. He's also a quick decision maker. And I think just processing or quick decision making or whatever you want to call it is one of the most underrated, underdiscussed qualities in basketball today. Like Jose Alvarado just has a mind for the game. You know, he could diagnose what's happened and quickly react. And you see guys who are just straight hoopers, bro, who can make these 6 shots, who can't read the game, and your people sit there and wonder, well, why does the impact not measure the eye test? And it's like, I think that's a reason why. Like, I think guys who can read the game and react quickly, it's an underrated quality.
What choice does he have? He's 5'0". The windows that are already tight in the NBA are so much tighter for him that he has to have a mental advantage on you to get the shot off so many times. If I had to guess, I would say 60% of his makes are because he shoots the ball earlier running down into the lane than any defender is comfortable with. The ball leaves his hand and is going off high glass early because he doesn't want your feet to get set and you to contest it. So that half second where he decides to go super fast, like he might charge just inside the 3-point line, and by the time he hits the elbow, he's already sliding his hand up and the ball up in the air to get it up high glass before your arm goes up. And that's life and death for him. And if he doesn't see that, he'll reel that thing back down, dribble in a circle under the rim, and he'll probe around until somebody gets open. And maybe somebody crashes and he gets an easy assist. He knows what he is and what he can do. And I think in the past, like even like last offseason, I talked to some people that were like, yeah, but it's always his shot. I think last season was different. I think last season he played within himself and displayed even more. Like he has definitive skills, and he's just one of these guys. Like he is appropriately valued, and he is going to get paid consistently in this league. He's going to have at least a few more years. There will always be doubts with somebody his size, but he does have that potential, like JJ Barea stick around, and I hope he has a similar career. I hope he gets re-signed here over and over again, because the value we have with him just matters a little bit more than what somebody else might value. I hope he stays here forever.
Yeah, Jose's got 1 year left in his deal right now. It's about $2 million. He's going to become an unrestricted free agent after that. Look, I think the extension possibilities with Jose Alvarado, Trey Murphy, and Brendan Ingram are all worth continuing to monitor before the season starts. I mean, Jose, we'll see. Trey Murphy, we'll see. I still think that gets done, but I could see going either way. And then Brandon Ingram, I think I would be surprised if there's an extension at this point. It just feels like we're heading towards him going into the season on an expiring. But look, I've really enjoyed watching Jose play so far. I'm excited to watch him again this year. You know, I got to know some of the people on the who've known him since his days at Christ the King a little bit. I did a story years ago in his rookie year, and I got to talk to some of them. And one thing they always tell me is Jose is the most loyal guy in the world. He stayed at the same high school all 4 years. He stayed at the same college all 4 years. He legitimately loves New Orleans. That's what they always tell me, and I think it's true. Like, he legitimately loves it here. He does seem to be loyal in this era when everyone is a mercenary. Everyone's just out for themselves.
Yeah, now with Najee departing, you could argue that, Jose, the can't go back all-star, might be our toughest player. Like, he might be the guy that takes the cheap foul because he just needed to cut the guy off and needed to make him feel him, so he gave him an elbow in the chest, and then turns around and tells the ref, "Oh, I barely touched him." Teams have to have that stuff. We're happy that we're getting like a major competitor in DeJounte. We're excited about that. But of the guys that have been here and are still here, the one guy that, like, you got to have dudes that are willing to back you up. Jose is willing to throw a punch at a dude a foot taller than him, just standing on the sideline because he looked over and saw that Najee was in conflict. So you got to have a ride or die. Najee's not here anymore. That's one of the lieutenants right there. I'm happy that we still have one here, and it's the tiniest dude, because of course it is. Because don't mess with tiny people. Tiny people who become pro athletes and defy odds. Don't mess with them. They had to be ready for this. They have to be willing to kill you, or they wouldn't be here.
The last thing I got at Jose is he's really good playing with Zion. And I think that does kind of matter. I was looking at the Zion Jose two-man lineup from last season, 432 minutes, 116 offensive rating, 104 defensive rating, plus 12 net rating, meaning the Pelicans outscored other teams by 12 points per 100 possessions. Like, a big part of their success last year was just like Zion and some bench dudes mashing other people, and Brandon and some bench dudes mashing other people. And I mean, Jose was obviously an enormous part of it, but I think he gets playing with Zion. Like, he knows how to set him up. I think Zion kind of feeds off of his energy. Like, just when I watched them last year, I was like, these two guys just make sense together. And then I look at the numbers. I'm like, that confirms it.
But it'll still be nice that there will be somebody else on this team that has the ability to probe space and deliver a pass and handle the ball in those scenarios. And that it won't only be him. Because until now, he was the only pure half-court guard on this roster. Now, there's another dude who can take the brunt of that a lot more than the other guys on the roster. And I am, as much as I love Jose, I am excited that that exists.
You're talking about the world's #1 Seattle Seahawks fan, DeJounte Murray, right?
The world's #1 Seattle. Why you got to do that? Yes, I am. Anyway,
#2 Seahawks fan, #1's Jim Eichenhofer, Pelicans writer for.
Oh, excuse me.
Huge.
A little inside baseball on the Seahawks.
Oh,
I'm gonna learn from myself as a Saints fan. I'm gonna lower my expectations for how this season's gonna go. I'm gonna focus on the broad strokes. I'm gonna look for Zion to just come out like a bat out of hell, and just like having more talent than other teams, and having guys that have played together a lot is going to help, especially in the regular season. You know, I'm okay with the decisions they've made so far. I'm with you in that I think Trey's probably going to get the extension. It's hard to believe that they both don't find a number that works because there's just his value is pretty explicit. And there's some very, very clear recent comps that line up pretty well. And money's about to balloon in a way where you shouldn't feel like it's that much of a risk. So it feels like that will figure itself out. But I hope Jose gets one too. Because like I could just see him being like a little mini Udonis Haslem for New Orleans, like a guy that's just like that. We love those dudes. We love underdogs in this city. We all loved like people still, the inordinate amount of Dan Dickau mentions that happen in this city and state. Like it's
Do
irrational.
They?
Yeah.
Okay.
We absolutely ask next time a random Pels fan sends you a DM, ask him what his favorite Dan Dickau game is. And I promise you he's got one. Because like we loved that crap. We sold ourselves on that stuff. We were Gennaro Pargo apologists. So if Jose wants to have a 10-year career here, that'd be sick. He's exactly our kind of stuff. So sign me up. Let's get the ball rolling. I'm a little tired of offseason. I'm ready to roll. Thank God the Saints are good. I'm entertained for the time being.
We're almost there. Media days, September 30th. We're less than 2 weeks away. We will have you covered from all angles. I'm very excited to get going. Thank you guys for listening. Support us by checking out some of the Crescent Canna stuff, and we will be back to talk to you again next week.